Good morning everyone. Today we are going to start with the ventricle of the brain. So the objective of this lecture is to learn the location, boundaries, contents and function of the fourth ventricle. So first of all starting with the ventricle, what the ventricle is. Ventricle are the communicating cavities within the CNS that are lined by the ependymal cells which produces and contains and circulates the CSF or the cerebrospinal fluid. As you can see, these are the empty structures which are present in between the CNS. So we are going to discuss about that. Now question arises, how many cavities are there? So there are four major cavities, like two lateral ventricles which are present in each cerebral hemisphere. As you can see, this is very big large cavity like structure. So this is the lateral ventricle. It is going to have the three horns. This is the anterior horn, posterior horn, inferior horn and the body region. So this is the major components of the lateral ventricle. These are present in each of the cerebral hemisphere. Now these lateral ventricles are going to be interconnected with the third ventricle. This is the third ventricle. As we have discussed earlier also, there is a cavity which is present in between the two thalami, which are interconnected with the which are connected with the superiorly with the lateral ventricle through the interventricular foramen or the foramen of the Monro. Interventricular foramen or the foramen of the Monro, as you can see in this diagram. Then this third ventricle is inferiorly extended to the cerebral aqueduct. This is the cerebral aqueduct. This is the cavity of the midbrain. This is the cavity of the midbrain, and this cerebral aqueduct is going to extend up till the fourth ventricle, as you can see here. So this is the again triangular shaped cavity which you can see. This is the fourth ventricle. This is going to empty inside the central canal, which is going to be present in the some part of the brainstem and then extending to the spinal cord. Now you can see in this diagram, these are the two lateral ventricles. These are going to be connected with the third ventricle to the interventricular foramen, and this third ventricle is going to be connected with the fourth ventricle to the cerebral aqueduct, and this is the fourth ventricle over here. As you can see, the lateral ventricle is the cavity of the cerebral hemisphere, and this is the third ventricle is the cavity of the diencephalon, and the fourth ventricle is the cavity which is present in the lower part basically. So it is going to be present in between the brainstem and the cerebellum. We are going to discuss this in detail. After that, I want to fetch your focus in this smaller region. So we are going to just magnifying this and we are going to just start studying this region. So the fourth ventricle is one of the interconnected cavity fluid filled cavities within the human brains, and as you can see here, these cavities contains the constitutes the these are the different cavities which are going to constitute the ventricular system of the brain. The fourth ventricle lies posterior to the pons and the medulla. As you can see, this is the pons and this is the medulla. So this is the anterior and this is the posterior. So this is the posterior surface of the pons and the medulla, and anterior to the ventral anterior to the cerebellum. So this is the cerebellum, this is the anterior aspect of the cerebellum, this is the posterior aspect of the cerebellum, so just anterior. So this in between structure is going to be called as the fourth ventricle. It extends superiorly to the cerebral aqueduct, as you can see, and extend inferiorly as the central canal to the spinal cord and the upper part of the brainstem. It is lined by the ependymal cell, as we had just discussed earlier, and it is bathed by the cerebrospinal fluid. So this fourth ventricle is going to have certain components. So there will be one floor of the this ventricle which is going to be formed like this. This is the floor, and they are going to be the lateral walls. Lateral walls. So these are the lateral walls of the fourth ventricle, and then there is going to be formed by there is going to be formation of a roof which is going to be present over here. So we are going to discuss this in detail. So in this diagram again I want to show, so we are going to discuss about the lateral wall of the fourth ventricle. It is formed by the cerebellar peduncles. As you can see, this is the region of the midbrain, this is the pons, and this is the medulla oblongata. The midbrain is connected with the cerebellum through the superior cerebellar peduncle, and the medulla oblongata is connected with the cerebellum through the inferior cerebellar peduncle. So there is extension of the superior cerebellar peduncle, which is going to be act as the superior lateral wall of the fourth ventricle, and inferiorly this wall is going to be formed by the inferior cerebellar peduncle. Actually, it is not the neuronal part, as there is the neuronal part which is going to be present in the superior cerebellar peduncle, which is going to be called as the superior medullary velum. So this is the region, or this is the tent like covering which is going to form the superior medullary velum, and there will be the inferior medullary velum. It is just the extension, but it doesn't contain any neuronal part. It is more or like a pia mater like covering, or the pial covering, like sheath like covering. So this lateral wall is nothing but just the tent like projections which are going to be meeting at this certain point at the apex, which is going to form the roof of the fourth ventricle. These lateral walls are going to have certain extensions in the form of the lateral recesses, which we are going to see further on in the next slide. And these lateral recesses, one or another, these are just present on the both the half. So we are going to see it in the posterior aspect as in this slide. So we had just seen, so these are the lateral walls, and the lateral walls, as you can see over here, so this is the superior medullary velum, which you can see over here. In this diagram we are just showing the posterior aspect of the brainstem, and the cerebellum has been removed. So this is the region of the midbrain, this is the region of the pons, and this is the region of the medulla oblongata. So this is the upper part, posterior upper part of the medulla oblongata, and this is the posterior lower part of the medulla oblongata. As you can see, it is just extending as a this spinal cord. As you can see, there is a posterior median sulcus, which is just a line of demarcation, which is just dividing this part into the two equal halves, both the brainstem into two equal halves, or you can say that the floor of the fourth ventricle into the two equal halves. Then I just before going towards the floor, I just want to conclude my that part. So this is your uh, lateral recesses. These are your lateral recesses. As you can see, these are just smaller empty region which are going to act as the lateral recesses over here. Then in this diagram I just want to lay your attention this greener portion. As you can see, so this is the midline, which is known as the posterior median sulcus. Can you see there are this horizontally running fibers towards each side, and it is going to divide it into the upper half and the lower half. So this horizontally running fiber are known as the stria medullaris. This horizontally running fiber are known as the stria medullaris. So this stria medullaris is going to divide this fossa into the two parts, this floor into the two parts, the upper half and the lower half. As you can see, this floor is of a rhomboid shape or a diamond shape, so that's why it is also known as the rhomboid fossa, also known as the rhomboid fossa. So this is the first of all I'm going to discuss about the superior half. So this is the again the dorsal median sulcus. Just lateral to the dorsal medial sulcus we are going to have the two uh, prominences which are known as the facial colliculus. These are known as going to be called as the facial colliculus, and then this is the region for the vestibular region. This is the region of the vestibular region. So these are just the prominences which are just occurred due to the presence of the certain nuclei, cranial nerve nuclei, which are present below that. Then we are going to just see on the lower half of the this lower half of this rhomboid fossa. So as you can see, this is the there is a triangle which is just formed over here. There are the two triangles like structure which are formed over here. One is the medial triangle and one is the lateral triangle. Similarly, you can see that this one is the medial triangle and one is the lateral triangle. So this medially lying triangle is known as the hypoglossal trigon or a hypoglossal triangle, and this laterally prominent triangle is known as the vagal triangle or vagal trigon. These are again, there will be presence of the cranial nerve nuclei just under these prominences. Now there are two ridge-like structures which are just extending over here. These are known as the tinea. These are just the tinea like ridge like structures. I just want to, these are the just the white ridges. As you can see, they are the two prominent ridges which are just extended laterally, and these are nothing but the tinea, and they are going to meet in a um, they are going to be meet in a small fold which is known as the obex. So this region is going to be called as the obex. This is the obex, this is the tinea, which are just the lateral projections present over here. So this is the fossa, kind of the fossa or the floor of the fourth ventricle, and this is the lower part of the medulla oblongata. Actually, this cavity is going to empty inside. So this is the region of the lower extension. As you can see, this is again a continuation of one such cavity. So this is just continuing as the central canal, which is just present over here. This is the central canal. Now just again I just want to make you revise the all of the structure in the rhomboid fossa. So this is the, again this is the diamond shaped fossa or the diamond shaped floor, which is divided into two equal half by the posterior median sulcus, and then horizontally it is divided by a horizontal fiber which are known as the stria medullaris, and in the superior half we are going to have this are the this is the facial colliculus. This is the rounded two vola like structures, and more laterally we are going to have the vestibular region. Then inferiorly we are again having the two trigons. The triangles are again formed. So these are the this inferior most triangle. The medial inferior medial is going to form the hypoglossal trigon, and lateral triangle is going to be called as the vagal triangle, which is just present. Then these are the two white ridges known as the tinea of the fourth ventricle, which are going to meet at a small fold that is known as the obex. I just want to tell you that this is just appearing like a nib of the pen. So this is just the nib part of the pen, and this is just acting as the nib of the pen. So this hole is known as the calamus scriptorius. This structure is known as the calamus scriptorius. Now, what is the function of the ventricle is? It is as the production, and it acts as the site for the flow of the cerebrospinal fluid. Why it is important? As the cerebrospinal fluid is a clear water-like fluid that resides within the ventricle system, it acts as a shock absorber and plays a vital role in the protection of the central nervous system. I hope you understand this part. Thank you.